I'm here with Jana Carole, and she works for Columbia Pictures, and she's a friend and someone I greatly admire, and I would like you to get to know her, so I'm going to ask her some questions today about how she found Ashland, why she loves Ashland, how they arrived here, and how they've found it to be. And so she'll tell us a little bit about herself, about her life here, and so I'd like to have you meet Jana Carole.
My husband Keith and I moved to Ashland about 12 years ago from Santa Monica, California. It was a completely different lifestyle that we were seeking after living in the big city. I think Ashland has offered for us all the things that we loved about living in the city with none of the things that we had grown so weary of. So when we shopped around all over the Northwest, we found Ashland to have all the things we loved about a small town, but also many of the things we loved about the big city. I think at the time our kids were really small, and having a great school district without the cost of purchasing tuition of a private school, Ashland certainly had all of that, but in addition to that, it offered for us the entertainment, the culture, the live music, the live theater, all of those things that we did enjoy in the greater LA area, but we've remarked over the years we do so much more here now that we live in Southern Oregon because there's so many opportunities here.
Well, I've always been fascinated, Jana, with telecommuting and how people can do that. And I know it's really common now, and many of our clients do that, but would you tell us about that and how that works?
Telecommuting is something that I think more and more nationally is becoming a way of life for a lot of employees, especially in a corporate kind of environment. I work for Columbia Pictures, which is owned by Sony Studios, has, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of employees worldwide. But what happened for me was the technology got to the point where it truly didn't matter whether I was here in Ashland, Oregon, or in my home in the Los Angeles area, or in an office right there on a studio lot, which is how I started my job. So it's really great here to be able to have an office here in my home, to be more connected with my family life, my kids' life, and still be able to make my deadlines at work simply by clicking on my keyboard and getting my work in on time. So more and more it's something that employees are able to do in all sorts of different jobs, and it really is just a kind of a quality of life improvement to be able to work at home.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is that how you become involved in community. And I know you're very active because I've seen you at so many events. I've seen you at the high school, and I've seen you at the film festival. And I know you're very involved in the National Schools Foundation. And so I'd like to tell us how you got involved and what that means to you.
Well, I guess perhaps the downside of being close to your kids and to your community is that you have a lot of opportunities to say yes to volunteer work. And one of those things for me has been being involved with the Ashland Schools Foundation, which helps to augment everything that's great about our schools here. I think another thing is an opportunity to work with the up-and-coming Ashland Independent Film Festival, which is really a big piece of our community here in the month of April and really all year long. The opportunities are endless, but it also sort of is what brings the community of Ashland closer. I think that one of the reasons that Ashland may have appealed to Keith and to me is that we saw the community where we lived in the west part of Los Angeles, which was originally a sweet little place, much like Ashland, full of historical homes and beachside bungalows, and it all became completely overbuilt, and a lot of the more interesting historical features of the town were torn down in favor of kind of not very nice building. And I think one of the things that immediately struck us about Ashland was that there is a preservation here of the history while still welcoming new and interesting building into the existing neighborhoods. And I think that historical piece, my husband Keith is on the Historical Commission as part of his volunteer efforts in the community, and I think we really saw a place where we could plug in here and be feel like it was a way to really contribute. I think there's a funny little myth about Oregon that they don't like Californians, and I actually find the opposite to be true. But I think more than that, I think that the people are very welcoming. I think there's time here to have a brief conversation. I think over a few weeks and a few months, you actually do know the person who's at the register ringing up your groceries, or the crossing guard that you wave to in the morning when you're driving your kids to school. It is a place where you can connect with people, and again, it still has the sophistication that a larger community offers culturally, and to us it's the best of both worlds.
Okay, Jana, now you know what I really want to know. I want to know about what you actually do for Columbia Pictures.
I've worked for Columbia Pictures for over 20 years, and for most of that I have been what is called a screen story analyst. So I read mostly screenplays, sometimes unpublished manuscripts or galley proofs of books that are about to be published, and I evaluate the material for Columbia Pictures to help them decide whether it's something that would be worthy of producing as a movie. Wow. So I read speculative screenplays and other material that might be able to adapt into a movie. I also read, once Columbia has optioned material, I can read subsequent drafts of that material, sometimes 3 or 4, sometimes 18 or 20, depending on how many revisions it goes through in the process before it gets the green light. So I look at those, I help them determine whether they feel that it's moving in the direction that they want in order to invest in that material or to invest further in that material.
That's fascinating. You know, there's a rumor that you were somehow involved in Julia.
You know, people who do my work do not get screen credit of any sort.
Okay.
We're kind of the anonymous, invisible people who work in little rooms, in my case, in Ashland, Oregon, but some right on the studio lots, which is what I used to do when I first started my career. And yes, I read 13,000 pages of the original blog that Julie Powell wrote years and years ago, and then the manuscript that eventually became her book, and I also read several drafts of the screenplay before it was produced.
Great.
It was a really fun project to work on.
It was
and
a
it
great
helped
movie.
my cooking a lot. Too.
It was a good movie.
Definitely influenced how we designed our kitchen, and no, it really was fun, and it's interesting how those things kind of move in your life just through the amount of reading that I did, and reading about Julia Child. I am just this week taking a knife skills class at Allison's of Ashland with my daughter. So, you know, those things they do kind of all dovetail sometimes.
Take a life of their own.
They do.
Yeah. Jana, thank you so much.
Thanks,
that was really fun.
Thanks for coming to our house.
Really enjoyed it. And that's just what I've been saying, how many fascinating, wonderful, charming, charismatic people that move here. We're so lucky.
It's a great place to live, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's fantastic. Thank you.